أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, dear sisters. Welcome to the special lecture today regarding inheritance laws. Laws as we learn from Quran and Hadith, the Sunnah. Our Ad-Duha students have recently read in Surah An-Nisa the verses pertaining to heirs and their inheritance. In Surah An-Nisa, verse 7, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls these divisions of inheritance as nasibam mafruḍa, that is, an obligatory share. To tell us more about this obligation, we have with us Sheikh Abdul Rahman Khan. He is a graduate of the Islamic University of Medina, Faculty of Sharia, specializing in Islamic inheritance. He is a former Imam and teacher at Rockford Iqra School in Illinois, USA. He was a resident scholar and lecturer at the Islamic Foundation, Villa Park, Chicago, Illinois. He has also served as chairman of ICNA Sharia Council. He is an executive member of the Fifth Council of North America and member of the National Muslim Catholic Dialogue. Inshallah, we will have a 10-minute Q&A session after the lecture. If time runs out, attendees can always email their questions to adduha.iise@icnasisters.ca, and we will reply to them, inshallah. Without taking up any more time, I would like to welcome Sheikh to please share his slides and begin his lecture. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for that very kind introduction. Although I don't want to sound
The recording has started.
yes, although I don't want to sound like I am very special in this field, but may Allah bless us all in this process. So this lecture is it 1 hour or 2 hours long?
2 hours, Sheikh.
2 hours. So we'll have enough time for question, and you will see sisters. I'm assuming many sisters are here, but if there are any brothers as well, and you want to send your question, you will see by the time we finish our session how to direct your question on what information you need to give when you're asking question about Islamic inheritance and wills. So let us begin, inshallah. We will talk about ilm al-fara'id, importance of fara'id from the Quran and Sunnah, the difference between terminologies, what is irth, what is wasiyah, what is hiba. We have fixed and unfixed portions that are mentioned, some prerequisite or conditions before we start sharing out wealth. We also will talk about 1/3 of your wealth, what you can do with it and what you cannot do. We will talk about the male and female relatives who can inherit from you. And then we will have some Q&A. I will prefer you write your Q&A and send it in once we cover most of this so that you have an idea. Perhaps most of your questions will be answered by the time we finish with our session, inshallah. So let me begin with ilm al-fara'id. This topic in Sharia, it's a whole subject called ilm al-fara'id. So this is a very vast topic. Very, very vast topic. In fact, you study this subject twice a week for a whole year. So to do it in 1.5 hours or 2 hours will not make anybody a scholar here. Okay, just let me say it up front. You cannot just sit in a 2-hour session and feel that, oh, mashallah, I can now go and pass fatwa around. You get so much, you get so much. There are quite a number of bits and pieces that we will not be able to answer in this 2-hour session, but it gives you an idea what it is and bring awareness of this important aspect of Sharia that, as I mentioned here, highly neglected by Muslims. Okay, so just bear that in mind. This is a subject that you take a whole year to study, 2 periods per week, and so you multiply that at least by 30 weeks. So it's about 60 sessions you will have on this topic, and there are many parts of it as well. Um, Initially, it was highly obligated. Um, Initially, it was an obligatory to write a will, and then comes Surah An-Nisa, which abrogated these initial laws. Okay, so initially it was wajib, it was compulsory to write a will, and then once Surah Nisa comes in, these laws now are no longer in force, and so this ayat in Surah Nisa, which we will come to inshallah, become the dominant shares that your relatives will get once you leave this world. And so this subject that is called Ilm al-Faraid deals with rules as well for calculating and dividing the inheritance and distributing it so that each of the heirs receive the right share according to Quran and Sunnah. Okay, so you find that there is also some math inside of inheritance. So you have to know some basic math. Sometimes not so basic because it can become complicated when you start dealing with figures, dealing with property, price of property, price of immovable assets. You know, so you will find that you will have to have someone who can know some math that they can share these properties rightfully. Sometimes they take a whole week or 2 weeks, not every day, but like, you know, some sessions to solve one person's inheritance, because the more property you have, the more relatives you have, for example, the more property you have, you will have to spend more time in dividing, in deciding, in calculating, in you know, liquidating. If you were to liquidate this property, how much it will become, and so forth. So this is where another section that of the inheritance that deal with some math as well. So while you'll have some knowledge of Quran and Sunnah, you have to have some knowledge of math, how to deal with the shares. And so now we are going to talk about the importance of Faraid from the Quran and Sunnah. As I mentioned earlier, that sometimes we don't pay attention to this topic. We don't pay attention at all to the topic as we pay attention to our zabiha meat. We all fight and make sure we eat zabiha, which is all well and good. We all make sure we pray our salah on time, which is all well and good. But when it comes to these commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as we go through them, you will find how firm it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving these instructions. Okay, so they're not simple instructions. They're just as equally important as our salah, our zakat, our fasting, because the consequences can be severe. So in chapter 4, verse 11, and there are just about 3-4 ayat that deals with inheritance. Chapter 4, verse 11, يُوصِيكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي أَوْلَادِكُمْ لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنثَيَيْنِ فَإِنْ كُنَّ نِسَاءً فَوْقَ اثْنَتَيْنِ فَلَهُنَّ ثُلُثَا مَا تَرَكَ وَإِنْ كَانَتْ وَاحِدَةً فَلَهَا النِّصْفُ وَلِأَبَوَيْهِ لِكُلِّ واحد منهما السُّدُسُ مما ترك إن كان له ولد فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين آباؤكم أو أبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا فريضة من الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما. So as a rough translation, we are going to go through this and you will start to see how the portions fit in. But as I said, what you see as one portion doesn't mean that that's it. There are many conditions that are there, and those are the conditions that are worked out from the time of the Sahaba until it is all documented as form of a discipline. So the ayah says, Allah commands you with regards to your children's inheritance, okay? To the male, a portion equal to that of 2 females. So that's the first portion we see, that for your children, what a male gets, he gets twice as much as the daughter, okay? So your son gets twice as much as the daughter. Now this has become some chaos in people who are feminists, people who challenge the Sharia, and only to know that males have the responsibility of expenditure of the family and females don't. So we cannot play with Allah's deen and then come back and say, well, why? And this is Islamophobes, they use this kind of thing to create chaos in our society. If they're only daughters, so if you don't have sons now, and they're daughters 2 or more, their share is 2/3. Okay, so we will talk about what happens to the next 1/3 of the inheritance. If only one, so if you only have one daughter, her share is a half. She gets half of the property. So for parents now, for parents, 1/6 of the inheritance. This is the translation of that verse, by the way. For parents, 1/6 of the inheritance to each. So your mom gets 1/6 if you are the person who died. Always remember, you are the deceased person. You know, some cultures say, oh, no, don't say that. Sisters, and if they're brothers, our time is written 50,000 years before this heaven and earth is created. Okay, so whether we say I will die or I will don't die tomorrow, that is irrelevant. Our time is already given. So for parents, so you always think about yourself as the deceased person. Then it makes it much easier. So you are the deceased person. Your mom and your dad gets 1/6 of the inheritance. So to each, if the deceased left children. So if you leave children, any child, boy or girl, your mom and your dad, your mother and your father will get 1/6 of the property as what we call fard, okay, as their fixed portion. And then afterwards, we will see what happens to the rest of the wealth, okay? If no children, and the parents are the only heirs, so you die, you don't have kids, and your mother and father are your inheritors, the mother has 1/3. So your mom gets 1/3. It means that your dad will get the 2/3. Once his name is not mentioned, it means that if your parents alone are inheriting, so the mom gets 1/3, the dad gets the 2/3, the remainder. If the deceased, so you are the dead person, and you left brothers or sisters, okay, so they have to be two or more, and you leave a mother, you leave a father, so the mother gets 1/6. The brothers and sisters do not receive with the presence of your father, but it reduced your mother, okay? The distribution in all cases is after payment of legacies, that is your will, and that is the 1/3 of your will that you have to give to an organization or some worthy cause or some beneficial, like somebody, help you in your life. They're not your relative, they will not inherit from you. You want to give them 1/3 of your wealth or less. You have up to 1/3, okay, after the payment of your will that he may have bequeathed or debts. So if you have debts that you owe people money, or you have this 1/3, after that is paid, then these people will get that share. We're coming to their share in details. I'm just giving a rough translation here of what that ayah is saying. So you know not which of them, whether your parents or your children, are nearest to you in benefit. These fixed portions or shares are ordained, are commanded by Allah. And Allah is ever all knower, all wise. So it is not your emotions or your culture or what is customary in what we do. We leave the property for our last child or the big child, or or you become emotional and say, look, they are not taking care of me. This one is taking care of me. When I die, he or she gets all the property. That's not what this commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. Okay? So we have to be very careful. The next one talks about وَلَكُمْ نِصْفُ مَا تَرَكَ أَزْوَاجُكُمْ إِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُنَّ وَلَدٌ فَإِنْ كَانَ لَهُنَّ وَلَدٌ فَلَكُمُ الرُّبُعُ مِمَّا تَرَكْنَ مِنْ بَعْدِ وَصِيَّةٍ يُوصِينَ بِهَا أَوْ دَيْنٍ وَلَهُنَّ الرُّبُعُ مِمَّا تَرَكْتُمْ إِنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لَكُمْ وَلَدٌ فَإِنْ كَانَ لَكُمْ وَلَدٌ فَلَهُنَّ الثُّمُنُ مِمَّا تَرَكْتُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ وَصِيَّةٍ تُوصُونَ بِهَا أَوْ دَيْنٍ وَإِنْ كَانَ رَجُلٌ يُورَثُ كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهم السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله والله عليم حليم. So this portion here, this ayah, chapter 4, verse 12, deal with spouses. So in that which your wives leave. So it means you are a man and you're a man and your wife died. Okay, so if you are a man and your wife died, your share is a half if they have no child, whether with you or with a previous marriage. So if your wife does not have any child, either from you or from a previous marriage, your share, the husband's share, is a half. But if they leave a child, again, whether from your child or she has another child for another man, and she died, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible because this is a very complex discipline. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So if they leave a child, if your wife dies and she leaves a child, whether a child with you or with a previous marriage, you get a quarter, you get the fourth of which they leave after the payment of legacies. That is the will that they have, the 1/3 will that they can make to other people, or what they may have bequeathed, or debt. They owe somebody some money, you have to take out that first. They make 1/3 of their will, you have to take out that. Then you get a half if there are no children for her, or a quarter if there is child. So the husband is between either a half or a quarter. In what you leave, so the husband dies here now. Okay, Allah is addressing the husband. If you leave in that which you leave. So if you die and what you leave behind in your property, your wives, or for their share, is a fourth. So the wives, your wife, you can have one wife, two wives, three wives, or four wives. They all will, if it is one wife, she gets the fourth completely. If it's two wives, they share in the fourth. Okay, so one will get 1/8, one will get 1/8. So that will make up the quarter. So if it is three wives, you will share that portion, okay, that quarter into three portion, or that quarter into four portion. If you leave no child, so the husband die, he has no children, and he has one wife, she gets a fourth, or if he has four wives, they still get a fourth, but they have to divide that fourth into smaller portions, equal portions for each one of them. If you leave a child, they get 1/8. So if it's one is 1/8, four of them, they still only will participate in that 1/8 of your wealth, which you leave after the payment of legacies, your will that you may have bequeathed, or debts. Now look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps saying after your will, that you may have left or documented, and your debts that you owe after that is paid. This is what happens. So the wife is between a quarter and 1/8. Quarter if there is no child left when the husband dies, and if there is a child, then she gets 1/8, or if there are more than one, they share in that 1/8. Then the other part of the ayah, if a man in kana rajulu yurathu kalalatan aw imra'atun, if a man or a woman dies without any child or any parents, so your parents die, you have no kids, either man or woman, but you have a brother or a sister, right? The brother or the sister will get 1/6. So if you leave one brother, they get 1/6. Or if you leave one sister, they get 1/6. But if they're more than that, in other words, they're one brother, one sister together, two brothers, one sister, or they're more than two together, then they share 1/3 of your wealth after your will that you may have left and after your debts have been paid. And this is a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Now look at the next two verses, and then you will know how serious this is. This is where I'm coming, I want us to come to our attention with this. Tilka hududullah. This is the limit set by Allah. وَمَن يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ يُدْخِلْهُ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا وَذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. So this is the limit set by Allah. Whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger will be admitted by Him, by Allah, to gardens in paradise, under which river flow, abiding eternally therein, and that is the great success. وَمَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَهُ يُدْخِلْهُ نَارًا خَالِدًا فِيهَا وَلَهُ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. So remember, Allah is saying these are the limits set by Him. So who obey Him, He has garden, and whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger and transgress, go beyond His limit, He will put him into the fire to abide eternally therein, and he will have an humiliating punishment. Now, while this ayah might be general for everything that Allah has set a limit, certainly it's coming immediately after the ayat of inheritance. And so for many of the mufassirin, they attach these two verses to those who violate the laws of that are mentioned in chapter 4, verses 11 and 12. And so it is not a simple my wealth and I do whatever I want to do with it, but this is the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many Muslims are violating this either mainly out of ignorance, so culture and customs and so forth come into their lives, and they say and do things that are not in accordance to Allah and His Messenger. Um, there are many hadiths, many of about inheritance, and a lot of them have some weakness. So these are the strong hadiths that we are going to mention. And Ibn Abbas, qala Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أقسموا المال بين أهل الفرائض على كتاب الله فما تركت الفرائض فلأولى رجل ذكر. So there are many narrations of this hadith, but basically it says divide the wealth among the heirs with prescribed shares. So their prescribed share or their fixed share, their non-unfixed share, according to Allah's book. Whatever remains after that, it is for the male person who is nearest to the deceased. The male person who is nearest to the deceased. And we'll come to that in a moment. And in it, that writing a will may be obligatory with regards to dues of others. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ma haqqu imri'in muslimin lahu shay'un yusi fi yabitu laylatayn illa wasiyatuhu maktubatun inda." It is not permissible for any Muslim who has something to make a will, for him to stay for 2 nights without having his last will and testament written and kept ready with him. And brothers and sisters, this is where a lot of people, a lot of family members, mothers and children, brothers and sisters, they all have issues because there is nothing written. You will say, oh, my dad said I will have this property. Do you have anything written? No, but he told me so 5 months before he died, 4 months before he died, just before he died. So if you don't have something documented, it is really a painful condition within the family. Families break up, especially if the wealth is a lot. Families break up because sometimes, again, in our culture, we don't understand the documentation of our wealth according to the book of Allah and according to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and we start giving out things by word of mouth. Oh, you will take the farm, you will take the house, 2 of you will take the house, or I have 2, 3 houses, you will take one, and there is nothing documented. And once the person dies, then he dies. There is no documentation with him. And so people spend a lot of money in court to fight and so forth. So this is where documentation of this 1/3 of the wealth is important. And we'll come to when you give somebody in this world, what does that gift mean? So sometimes you give a child a particular gift in your life, then give it to him. If you leave it in your wealth when you die, then that's not a gift any longer. Okay? In another hadith, تعلموا الفرائض وعلموا الناس فإنه نصف علم. Learn about the inheritance and teach it, for it is half of knowledge. So Ibn Kathir said that Ibn Uyayna, he's one of the muhaddithin, he said, why is inheritance half of knowledge? Why do you consider inheritance half of knowledge? And he said, Ibn Uyayna said that the inheritance laws have been called half of knowledge because all people go through this. Okay? So everybody goes through this process of inheritance. All of you sisters, you die today, you die tomorrow, your mom dies, your dad dies, your brother dies, your husband dies, your children die. Everybody goes through this process of inheritance. And so just as how we pray our salah 5 times a day on specific time in specific manner, inheritance has a lot of a structure and as an institution that you have to do it at a specific way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul has given, or at least as interpreted, those ayat and hadith as interpreted by the companions and those who would extract those rulings. And today we have that as a discipline. So it is half of knowledge. So I want to bring about, if nothing you benefit from today's session, my dear sisters, if nothing you understand in today's session, I want you to leave with one thing in mind, that this inheritance is not a simple issue, and take it seriously. Have a conversation with your family. You must have a conversation with your family. If I die today, this is what you do with my wealth. Sit with, let your mother, let this information go across, because the consequences are severe. You see, people make all kind of noise. You bring a food to the masjid, it is zabiha or not. Where did you get the meat from? So and so. Where did he get the meat from? So, oh, we do all end to eat zabiha meat. But when it comes to inheritance, we seem not to have much interest in going through our Islamic process of what happens when we leave this world, what happens with our wealth. Okay? So now we come to the fixed and unfixed portion. Fixed portion can be half, a quarter, or 1/8. Those are fixed portion. Or 2/3, 1/3, and 1/6. Okay? And so all the fixed portion that we talked about, if you remember those, chapter 4, verse 11 and 12, you will hear a half, you will hear a quarter, you will hear 1/8. Half is for husband. Quarter can be husband as well if they are children, or wife if there's no children, and 1/8 can only be wife. So spouses are basically half, quarter, and 1/8. 2/3, we heard the daughter get 2/3. 1/3, we hear the mom get 1/3. We also hear, if you don't leave a mother or father or children, and you have brothers and sisters who are on your mother's side, they get 1/3, and 1/6. A number of people will get 1/6. We'll come to all of these portions. Now, how do you remember these things? It's simple. That's why I'm saying there's some math involved here, okay? So if we have some sisters who are savvy with math, this will be easy. A half and a half of half is quarter, and a half of a quarter is 1/8. So a half of half is a quarter, and a half of a quarter is 1/8. 2/3, a half of 2/3 is 1/3, and a half of 1/3 is 1/6. So all you need to remember is the half and the 2/3, and then you go down by a half for each one of them. So a half of half is a quarter, a half of a quarter is 1/8. 2/3, a half of 2/3 is 1/3, a half of 1/3 is 1/6. So they are inheritors who can receive only by some fixed portion, okay? And they are inheritors who can receive only through unfixed portion. And they are inheritors that can receive through both fixed and unfixed portion. So what this section is saying here, that inheritors that can only receive by fixed portion, for example, a husband, a wife, they only get by fixed portion. Inheritors that can receive only through unfixed portion, okay? And those who can receive through unfixed portion are a lot of time male relative, because remember the hadith says, give it to the nearest male relative. So if you die and all you leave is a son, he gets the entire wealth. If you die and you leave a blood brother and he gets all of your wealth, okay? Or if you die leaving one daughter and one son, the share goes to the children. Male get twice as much as female. So your children gets a good portion, pretty much most of your property. And so there are those who will receive through unfixed portion. So a lot of them will be male, will get unfixed portion. And there are inheritors that can receive both by fixed portion and unfixed portion. Father, for example, he can get 1/6 if there are, like there is a daughter, and whatever remains from your calculation, he will get the remainder because he's the nearest male relative, okay? So the nearest male relative, he gets pretty much the remainder of your wealth. So you call that unfixed portion, okay? So the father can get both as fixed and unfixed portion in the same situation. All right. There are some wordings that we use, and you have hiba, which is a gift. So when you're alive, you give people things. You are alive and they are given something. This has to be something documented or known that my son Abdullah or my daughter Maryam, I have given this property, this house or this money or this car, and they have to have it in their possession in the sense that it's in their name, and people know that this is the gift that as a father or a mother you give to this one. Okay, the irth is, oh sorry, let's come to the wasiya next. Wasiya is what you call the residuary bequest, meaning your 1/3 that you have the ability to give whoever you would like to give of that 1/3 of your wealth. Okay, 1/3 of your wealth is what Allah, there's a hadith that mentions about that Allah has given you the opportunity to use that 1/3 of your wealth for additional blessings when you leave this world. Okay, so like a sadaqatun jariyah. So you can leave, and many people don't do that. Again, you feel whatever I leave, it has to be only for my children or for my relatives. We don't think about, wait a minute, when I die, they're going to take their wealth and be gone. Okay, when I die, they will take the wealth and they will enjoy their life with it. I'm going to be in my grave. That wealth will not benefit me in my grave. What will benefit you, at least if I take some of that wealth, if I take some of that wealth and give it for dawah purposes, give it for like printing Quran, for example, or an Islamic school. So what goes on there, you will get your thawab in your grave. And this, again, it is how we see wealth and how we calculate and how we assume our wealth to be. So if we truly want to benefit from our wealth after we die, you have up to 1/3. You can give a quarter, you can give 1/5, you can give less than that, less than 25%. You can give 24%, you can give 2%, you can give 1%. You will benefit something from your wealth. But if you give 0, then this wealth belongs to them by Allah decree. And when everybody ends from this world, everything returns back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I just want to say that this 1/3 of your wealth, sisters and brothers, again, if you're listening, this is where you have an opportunity to benefit from your wealth that you leave when you die and leave this world. Other than that, this wealth doesn't belong to you any longer. It goes to your relatives. You don't have any documentation for this 1/3, and you do not benefit anything from your wealth. I really would advise you to think seriously that Allah says it in so many times in these 2 ayat. After your min ba'di wasiyatin, after your wasiyah, your 1/3 that you would have left as documentation that you would have left, give this, give this, give this to that institution, or whatever good cause it will benefit you. You know, in this most of these universities, most of these big universities, if you see the amount of wealth that they have accumulated just because people die. Well, they don't have 1/3. They don't have. People just die and leave all their wealth for Harvard University, for MIT, for University of Chicago, for Berkeley University. Just look at their waqf, their what people have left as their giving to those institutions. Billions, not millions, billions of dollars have gone into those into their coffers. We as a Muslim community, a lot of wealth is going around us, but somehow we do not make use of that wealth that our community has, because we have a way of saying, and subhanallah, of everything else we believe, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us. So we know that we have endowments that we can leave, or waqf that we can leave, and these endowments could have run our organization. If Muslims were to take this 1/3 wealth seriously, think about 40 years, 50 years we are in existence in America or Canada, and if people were to leave a portion of that 1/3, that endowment would have increased and so much could have been done. But no, we prefer to leave it for our children. And once we die, we start hearing, oh, mom doesn't want us to cry, dad doesn't want us to cry, they want us to be happy. So that's another excuse for forget about them now. Time to move on. We get some $500,000 in my name. I don't need to sit and shed tears. We have to be careful, because these are that's what we are saying. Many people are very careless when it comes to what happens to our wealth when we leave this world. So, and the third one is what we call irth. So we have hiba, is your gift. You give a child a car, you give a child, some money, a property, while you are alive. Gifts you do not take back. Gifts you give, and that's it. Wasiya is when you die, you have this will up to 1/3 of your wealth, and this can go to institutions and things that can benefit you. You're not going to give for football or for whatever it is, if it's not going to be of beneficial use for mankind. The third one is irth, which is now, this money is now what is going to be inherited. This is your amount of money that is now going to be given to your family. So we are not going to go through this one, the difference between that. I talked about it already. So we will move forward. Yeah. Except that I'm saying here, wasiya should be in writing and witnessed by 2 male witnesses. Lots of problems arise when there is no witness or any documentation of your wasiya. Okay, so wasiya is very important that you make your documentation. Other than that, everything goes to the relatives. Now, carrying out the will is an important matter, and there is stern warning issued to those who change somebody's, will, that 1/3 will. Also, when it comes to children and giving of hiba, there are some guidelines, and we know from hadith, Nu'man ibn Bashir, his father brought him to the Prophet ﷺ when he gave him a gift, and he wanted the Prophet ﷺ to bear witness to that gift that he gave his son. And the Prophet ﷺ said, have you given something similar to all your children? He said, no. He said, then take it back. Then he said, fear Allah and treat your children fairly. So there could be, so this is the general rule, that you give your children, fair amount. But also in our time, children may have more need than another. One child might be a doctor, earning lots of money. One child might just be a taxi driver that barely make his ends meet, and you are in between as a parent. You can so if you give one child some money because of his need, so those are situations that you can work with. But if they're all on the equal footing, then it will be good that if you give them, and this is the hiba, that you give them a gift of the same nature. Now comes to this part here. What are the conditions or prerequisite of inheritance? Before you start sharing out your mother's money, your father's money, your husband money, your kids' money, or you are the deceased, and before they start sharing out your wealth, what should be taken out first? So first is burial expenses. And burial expenses would mean that so long as you have the capability of burying yourself, in other words, you have enough money with which your funeral expenses can be done, then you use your money. Because this is that many times when people die, there are people come forward that the mom wants to bury, the father wants to bury, the brother wants to bury. This also can be a little chaotic. So Sharia require us, once you would take care of your meals and your sustenance, if you have that, then you are also and you have the capability of doing that, and you have the capability of paying for your funeral expenses, then that should come from you. I know it's a little touchy issue, and people say, well, this is my son, this is my daughter, I want to pay for their funeral. If they can afford it, how did they live their life? Were you paying for their food every day? He's married, he has wife, he has children. Were you paying? You're the one who was paying for it, or he was working, he has his money. So if he has his money, then that money comes out and pays for his funeral expenses. Okay. Then the next set of money that comes out, his debts, what he owes. So he may owe some debt to people, and so some of that debt can be pinpointed. Some of that debt can be pinpointed. For example, you borrow a car from your relative or from a friend, so you have to give back that car. That car is not coming in. Or debt, that general debt, he owes $10,000. He borrowed $10,000 from me. You have the proper documentation. When people die, what happens? Everybody comes up. Oh, he owed me this, he owed me that. Now the poor dead man is gone. Where is your documentation? And that documentation better be good, better be sound documentation. How many people go to court for falsification when someone dies? He said, he owes me, he owes me, he owes me. Okay? So there are debts that can be pinpointed, and they are general debts that, in terms of monetary things, that he owes me this, he owes me that. Then if he has or she has, again, you are the deceased. Okay? So if you leave a will, which is up to 1/3 of your wealth, up to 1/3. So we are not going beyond that. So if you have a will, then that amount of money should be taken out before you start distributing to the relatives, and then comes the inheritance. Sisters and brothers, please do not wait for a year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 15 years. People have waited for a long time, a very long time, before they start distributing wealth. And when that happens, it creates so much chaos.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Oh. So Siri is jumping in here. My hand might have touched my watch, and yeah. So it creates so much chaos when 10 years pass, then you would say, I remember this. Once you pay his or her funeral expense, once you take out the debt, sometimes people don't have anything, no, didn't owe anybody. If you can identify how much wealth is left, so 1/3 belongs to the wasiya, if he has or she has a wasiya, and the remaining, so I would say within a month after that person dies, it is not wrong for you to ask, where is your share? Because once you start to let time roll and roll and roll, and then problems start to erupt, sometimes 5 year pass, 10-year pass, 20-year pass. You know, there are cases that I had 30 years pass, and in that 30 years, 4 persons died who should have inherited. So it is not fun. It is very tedious work to go in to your own to get what Allah has, you know, ordained for you to do. So it is not that you are you know, wanting to have, you have this desire for that person wealth. It's your wealth now. He's died, she died. You died today, that wealth doesn't belong to him any longer. It is your wealth, the survivor's wealth that Allah has given to you, but you just want to make sure his funeral expenses are taken care of, his debts are taken care of, his wasiya is taken care of if he has, and that wealth that remains belongs to you. Somebody else is keeping it and are making comments that, wait, can't you wait another month? Can you wait another 6 months? And people are waiting and waiting and waiting, and now they're afraid to ask their family, what happens with the property that my father leaves? What happened with that property? And so problems start to ensue. That is why this ruling of your wealth, Allah has made it very detailed, so that we do not mess up with emotions, with long-heartedness. I have to get so much. No, Allah has made it very clear who has to get what. And so we either prepare to serve Allah, to listen to Allah, to obey Allah, or else we will end up obeying our emotions, our ego, our greed, and we do whatever we want to do, and then the court decides. You know, there was a case, brother and sister alone left. Brother should have gotten 2/3 of the wealth, sister could have gotten 1/3. You're talking about $500 million. Brother decided to take 400 million and give sister 100 million. And one court story began. Obviously, lawyers see that big chunk of money. Well, guess what? They're not going to end until they make you spend at least half of that. Fighting each other, fighting. No, he's supposed to do, yes, he's supposed to do that. And this goes on and on and on. Lawyers make a lot of money when you see this, and your brothers and sisters whom Allah had given, or the children of the deceased, or who Allah has given this wealth, is wasted away behind attorney. All right. So scholars agree that burial expenses and debts that can be pinpointed must take precedent over every other right of the wealth of the deceased. So long as a person can pay his burial expenses, then nobody should jump in and say, well, I will pay it. You let him pay it, and then what remains, go for the other relative. They agree that general debts take precedent over the will as well. And they agree that the will or wasiya takes precedent over the distribution of the assets. So this is the sequence in which you will start. You take out his burial expenses, his debts, his will, and then what remains. So I'm giving an example here. A person dies leaving $150,000 in his property, in his money, and so forth, comes up to $150,000. So we're going to see what happens when the burial expenses happen. So you have burial expenses, let's say $10,000 for the hospital, for the funeral home, for the burial spot, the cemetery, okay, comes up to 10,000. So that 150 now becomes 140, okay. You can identify some things that he borrowed from people. He borrowed some equipment worth $15,000. So that equipment doesn't belong to the inheritors. It has to go back to the person, whoever he borrows it from. So now it comes down to 125. General debt, he owes $17,000. He owed XYZ, comes up to $17,000. Take out from this 125, 17,000. You leave with 108,000. Now he may have a 1/3 wasiya. So 1/3 of his wasiya is of 108,000 is 36,000. You give that wasiya that he has made the 36,000. So now 72,000 remains. If he didn't have a wasiya, you will give the 108,000 to the relatives. You now take this 108,000, and according to the Quran and the Sunnah, it will be shared according to that. So you see how simple it is? As simple as that. Now you may not have any identifiable things, debt, zero. You may not have any general debt, zero. You may not have 1/3 wasiya, zero. All you have is your burial expenses, and after that, 140,000 remains. So you give out the $140,000 to the relatives, okay? And this is what is owned by the relatives. So this is your picture that you have. So your relatives, even if you don't have any debts that you don't owe anyone, so that's another $32,000 you can after the burial expenses, 140, you can go straight to your 1/3. So you will now have 1/3 of $172, $172,000. You give 1/3 of that or a quarter of that, and the remainder goes to the family, which is still a good amount of money. All right. And so the evidence of 1/3 as a will, there is a hadith in Sahih Bukhari that Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he said, I fell ill and the Prophet ﷺ paid me a visit. I said to him, O Allah's apostle, I invoke Allah that he may not let me expire in the land whence I migrated, that is in Mecca. He said, may Allah give you health and let the people benefit by you. I said, I want to will my property and I only have one daughter, and I want to will half of my property to be given in charity. He said half is too much. I said, then I will 1/3. He said 1/3. Even 1/3 is too much. So 1/3 is the maximum. So he said, yeah, 1/3. You can give 1/3, but even 1/3 is a lot. And the narrator said, so the people started to will 1/3 of their property, and that was permitted for them. Hadith reported by Imam al-Bukhari. So from there we get the maximum of 1/3. Okay, that is 1/3 of your wealth. So sisters, think about that. Think about, I know we always think about our children, but we are not the providers of our children. Allah is the one who gives them. Wealth comes in our hand, and how much we want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what we should do. The Prophet ﷺ said, Inna Allah tasaddaqa alaykum inda wafatikum bi thuluthi amwalikum ziyadatan lakum fi a'malikum. Allah has been generous to you. So this is Allah's generosity to us. When he allowed you to give 1/3 of your wealth in charity when you die, to increase your good deeds. Subhanallah. This hadith is reported by Ibn Majah, and it is classified as Hasan, a sound hadith. So think about that Allah is kind to us. He's giving us an opportunity that when we leave this world, you give 1/3 of your wealth in charity when you die to increase your good deeds, because now as long as that 1/3 is being used, you will get the thawab, you will get the thawab, you get and you get and get and get and get until that vanishes. And sometimes it doesn't vanish because you build an Islamic institution or you help to pay for some like Quran, printing of Quran to be distributed to non-Muslims, and they come and they take Shahada and their family take Shahada and they learn Islam, they learn to pray. SubhanAllah, the possibilities are endless. But you have to give your 1/3. You can't hold back this 1/3. And that is, it is mustahab or commendable for a man to will that some of his wealth be used for charitable purposes, so that the reward that he may reach him after his death. So Allah granted permission for a person to dispose of 1/3 of his wealth for that purpose when death approaches. Okay? And so this is where our heart should really be with this 1/3 when we can benefit. So it is allowed to write a will concerning 1/3 or less. Some of the scholars said it is preferable for it to be less than 1/3, and the will does not apply to any of the heirs, because the Prophet ﷺ said, La wasiyata liwaris, that there is no will of that 1/3 for the inheritors. The only way it is allowed, and there is only one way it is allowed, if all the inheritors agree, both at the time of the person being alive and when he is dead and distribution takes place, you all agree, all those who can inherit agree that, okay, we agree that mom can get this 1/3 share, or we agree that this one, and all agree without any forcing them to agree. Okay? So other than that, no inheritors will inherit this wealth. Now, Muslim to non-Muslim inheritance. There's a hadith that the Prophet said, La yarithul muslimu al-kafir, wal al-kafir al-muslim. That a Muslim cannot be an inheritor or an heir of a disbeliever, nor can a disbeliever be an heir for an inheritor. And this has in Sahih Bukhari, Muslim, Muwatta, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Ibn Majah. So it is a very established hadith. Muslim cannot inherit from a kafir, kafir cannot inherit from a Muslim. Now let's go and see who can inherit. Who are the inheritors among the male? So first of all, your children, and who comes after them, your son. So we are dealing with male inheritors now. We'll come to the female in a minute. Your grandson means your son's son. Grandson from your daughter's side do not inherit. They will inherit from their father's side. But for you, your son, your son's son, going downwards through male. So your son, and going through that. So you will notice son is very much high. Your origin is your father, and your grandfather, that is your father's father. Okay, your mother father does not inherit. Your father, and going upwards through the male. So your great grandfather, your father's father, and so forth. Then your brothers. There are 3 types of brothers that you may have. Think about it. Your brother that you're from the same mother and father, or a brother from the father's side, your mothers are different, or a brother from the mother's side, your fathers are different. So these are 3 brothers. One will be is considered as blood brother, or akhun shaqiq. In Arabic, the names are more specific. Blood brother, same mother and father, or paternal brother, same father but different mothers, and maternal brother, same mother but different fathers. So if you have these relationships in your family, it's easy to understand. Okay? I do have one of each. So when I'm doing faraid, I always remember I have one blood brother, I have one paternal brother, and I have one maternal brother. So this works out well for me. Then comes brothers' sons. Okay? So your sister's sons do not inherit. We'll come to female inheritors just now. So your brother's son, that is your blood brother's son going down through males. Your paternal brother's son going down through males. Your maternal brother son doesn't inherit, okay, because he's coming through a female route there. So your maternal brother's son does not inherit from you. Only your blood brother's son and your paternal brother's son. Your uncles, that is your father's blood brother, going upwards, your father's or your grandfather blood brother, your great grandfather blood brother, your father's paternal brother. So your father, um, your father, he has a paternal from his father's side. He and this your uncle are brothers. Their fathers are different. Are same, but their mothers are different. You call it paternal brother. So the father maternal brother does not inherit. Only your own maternal brother inherits. And you can think about this as you go along. Names that there are a lot of names that are given here, but many of them may not end up inheriting. Okay, but these are possible inheritors. Your uncle's son, which is your cousin, so your father's blood brother's son and your father's paternal brother's son, they will inherit. And through nikah, the husband inherits. And through this doesn't exist today, but if it ever comes, freeing a slave, you become in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, freeing a slave, and that slave dies. Well, he's now a free man, but if he dies and he does not leave anyone, then the one who frees him, give him his freedom, he is entitled to the wealth of that person. Okay, so these are the 15. Let's go back them again quickly so that you will know who are these 15. The son, grandson, father, grandfather, brothers, there are 3. Brother, son, there are 2 of them. And then uncles, there are 2 uncles, and they're going upwards. And uncles' children, that going downwards, and through nikah will be the husband, and through freeing of a slave will be manumitter. So you will get, these are the 15 people. Now, if all of them are alive, all these people are alive, only 3 people inherit. Out of all that 50 names, only 3 people always will inherit. The husband, so it has to be a lady dying here, leaving all male relatives. The husband, the son, and the father. You remember from what we were saying, the husband gets a quarter if there's a child, and the father gets 1/6 if there's a child, and the male relative closest to the deceased gets the remainder. So you actually have this scenario that the husband gets a quarter, father gets 1/6. If you make the LCM out of 12, 3 and 2 is 5, so 7 shares goes to the son. So the son will get 7 shares. He gets the major part of the inheritance. Okay. Now let's look at female inheritors. So there were 15 male inheritors. Female will be your daughter or your granddaughter from your son's side. So your son's daughter. Daughter's daughter do not inherit. Okay. Then your origin, where you come from, your mom. Okay, she is there. And your maternal grandmother, your mom, and your paternal grandmother. So there are conditions before these can get, as we said. When they come together, you will see a lot of them get, are removed from the inheritance. Just like how you have 3 brothers, you can have the 3 sisters. You can have a blood sister, same mom and dad. You can have a paternal sister, same father, different mother. And you can have a maternal sister, same mother, but different fathers. And nikah will be wife, because none of these children will inherit. And if a female a person frees a slave, then she will be entitled to that. So basically, if you look at it, it's 9, okay? 9 person, because this female manumitter is, if that ever comes back, and most likely it may not be, but we just mention it because it is part of the female inheritors. So if a man dies, it has to be a man, leaving his wife, his daughter, I mean, leaving all 10 people, only these will inherit. So a lot more will inherit now. The wife gets 1/8 because of the daughter. The daughter gets a half because she is alone. She's one daughter. The granddaughter, your son's daughter, gets 1/6. The mother gets 1/6, and the blood sister gets the remainder. And this is, again, a long explanation. We don't. This is the whole year that we are trying to condense into this session, and we still have to leave time for your questions. So now, what happens if you leave all the inheritors? You can only need, if a man dies, he will leave everybody except the husband. He cannot leave a husband. Okay, forget about what's going on now. And if a husband dies, if a woman dies, she can leave her husband. So only these people will inherit. So what we can say, these are the strongest people when a person dies. Always ask, do they have a son? Do they have a daughter? Do they have a mother? Do they have a father? Do they have a wife? Just ask these questions. Once they are there, they have to receive. Nobody can knock them out of the situation. Similarly, if a woman dies, the husband must inherit, the son and daughter will inherit, the mother and father will inherit. Everybody else, you do not inherit. Your names might be there, but you will not inherit. These are the strongest people in any family. And once you have a son, khalas, you at least if you have a son, your situation is much easy to calculate, because the son will knock out the brothers, the son will knock out the brother's children, he will knock out the uncle, he will knock out. The only person he cannot knock out are the husband. And if the son, you die, you leave a daughter as well, he cannot knock her out, and your mom and dad. So these are the strongest people. Other than that, the nearest male will knock out those who are further away from you. So in this scenario here, number A is when a man dies, he leaves a wife, son, daughter, mother, father. Case B is a woman dies, she leaves her husband, son, daughter, mother, and father, and everybody else, but only these will inherit. So sorry, that's case A and case B. So now we do have some question now, and I would like to someone wrote this question. I want to show you how things are mixed up, and I leave it as it is. When the sister sent this Q&A, I said leave it as it is. So I want to show you how it can be complex and how things can go wrong. So question number one, if a father has 2 houses or 2 properties, okay? One of them was in his wife's name. We assume that one of them belonged to his wife. One of them belonged to him. She passed away. So we assume here his wife passed away. And the questioner said, and he got married. So what happened to the inheritance of his wife's property? So you see how things can go wrong. And he said, and that's why I make this into red. So he said that the house now belongs to his second wife. Oh, he cannot do that. This is absolutely wrong. So we haven't read more than 2 sentences, and we see that this is absolutely wrong what he does. Because if this woman dies and she has a property that belongs to her, when she dies, he gets, if there are children, he gets a quarter. If there's no children, he gets a half. So he only has half a share of the wife's house at the maximum. He cannot take this whole house and give it to his second wife. And the question is that he had one son who was married with kids. He passed away. So obviously, if he passed away before this his mother died. So he passed away. House was in their father's name and the kid's name after mom passed away. So after the mom passed away, he the property was in, again, this is quite a confusing. So um, so he had one son. So what happened to the lady? How much children she has? Has her mother and father been alive at her death? Does she have children at the time of her death? So those questions needs to be answered. So it has nothing to, he had one son who was married with kids, he passed away, house was in their father's name and kids' name after mom passed away. Now the father sold that house and gave his daughters their share, and son share was given to the widow and kids. Is this correct according to Islam? Or was he not supposed to pay anything to his daughters and widow of the son? Also, should there have been a share for his second wife, or giving her the other house and nothing for the first is fine, because the kids do not get anything from the second property? So this whole mas'ala here is a lot of pieces. And this is what I'm saying. Sometimes you get confused and you don't know what goes on. Obviously, a lot of information. A question like this would require a lot of information. I told the sister leave it as it is, because it you know, I just wanted to show chaotic how chaotic things can be. The first thing, what happens if his wife died and she dies, then the property that is in her name, so long as it belongs to her, must be broken down to whoever of her children was alive, and along with the husband. So the husband does get, it appears as if there was children in the marriage with the lady. So she will get, the father will get a quarter of the share. 3/4 of the wife share, wife number one, should have been given to her inheritors. And that's where the whole thing breaks down. And if the son who dies and he has children and so forth, then his wealth plus some of the wealth that the mother would have left should have been given to his relatives, his wife and children. And yeah, the rest of it is a little chaotic. So we cannot work out this situation unless a lot of information, but it looks as if a number of people needed to get their money, and there were more than one death in the family that things were not sorted out. At least the first wife seemed to have died. He had one son who was married, he passed away. So it looks like there were more than one person passed away. Property was not shared correctly. And so this whole case here is some wrong decisions were made and some complications are there. Okay. And a second case scenario. Yeah, some more questions are coming in. You can add them to the list. We can go through those that are written, and if somebody has some questions, that's fine. We are here in the Q&A session anyhow. Question: what is the inheritance law regarding an only daughter? Now that you read the ayah, you know only daughter gets a half if there is no other children of the deceased. Okay, so all he has is one daughter, she gets a half. Her mother passed away, and her father has 3 brothers and 4 sisters who are alive, and their kids are well settled. 1 sister and 1 brother have passed away as well as parents. So more clarification is needed for this. If a person died leaving an only daughter, she gets a half. When did the mother pass away? Okay. And yes, so her mother passed away. So this is the mother's wealth. Okay, so this is her mother passed away. This is the mother's wealth. So does the mother, if all the mother has was one daughter, then she gets a half. Then her relatives, not the father, it has nothing to do with the father relative. Okay, her mother passed away. So we look at her mother's relative. Does the mother leave a father, a mother? Does the, I assume her husband was alive, so he would get a quarter because there was a daughter. So this is still inadequate information, and it has nothing to do with the father property. Okay, because her mother passed away. It has to do with what the mother owns and what her relatives, who her relatives are. It has nothing to do with my father has 3 brothers and 4 sisters, because it's the mother property. All right, so more clarification is needed for that. And again, you ask the question, when your mother passed away, who was alive? Her husband was alive? Yes. Her father was alive? No. Her mother was alive? Yes. Does she have brothers and sisters, for example? So you ask those questions on your mother's side. It has nothing to do with your father's side. So those are the questions that you ask. Question number 3. Let's see what we have here. Question number 3. I did not get question number 3, but yes. So if you can send it on my cell phone, perhaps I can.
Oh, it seems your slides have not been updated. Sheikh, I can share my slides. We have about 12 questions.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah. I will share
So,
my slides, and then they'll come up on your screen so you can answer them.
yeah, so I need to cut off my
No,
PowerPoint now.
I can do it from here. It's fine.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, so so this is question number 8. So maybe we can go to question. Let's go in order so we will know maybe the order that you have.
Yes, just a minute, please. My computer is going a bit slow.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
Okay, my mom has some property. Okay, it's loading. Yes. So my mom has some property, and we are 3 daughters, and dad passed away. Who are her inheritors? And so if your dad passed away and your mother is alive and has property, we are not dealing with your mother's property. Okay? So again, you have to be very specific. If your dad passed away, we are not dealing with mom's property. What property did he leave, and which relative did he leave? Did he leave a father and a mother? Did he leave his wife? Yes. Did he leave children? Your 3 daughters. So who are her inheritors, and in what portion? She also has 3 brothers and 1 sister. So if you are saying here that your dad already passed away, so we are not dealing with your dad's wealth. All she has, we are dealing with your mom's property, and she has 3 daughters and 3 brothers and 1 sister. So these 3 daughters will share in 2/3 of the wealth. Okay, 3 daughters share in 2/3, so they will get 2/3. The other 1/3 will go to her 3 brothers and 1 sister, with male twice as much as female. So the other 1/3 that remain out of the whole, okay? So when daughters get 2/3 of the wealth, 1/3 remain. That 1/3 is not the 1/3 of the wasiya. This is 1/3 of the wealth that your mother has. Then if she doesn't have a mom or dad, then that wealth goes to her 3 brothers and 1 sister. You break it down into 7 shares, and each brother will get 2 shares and the sister will get 1 share. As for you 3 daughters, you will get 2/3, which is 67% of her whole wealth, and you will end up, each one of you will get 22 and 1/3 share per person. This is again roughly what you will get. So each daughter will get 22.5 or 22 and 1/3% of your mother's wealth, and her brothers and sister will remain, get the 1/3 that is remain, and they will break it up into 7 pieces. So 33 and 1/3 is going to be broken up into 7 pieces, which is basically 4, maybe 4.5. So each brother, sorry, will get 9 share, and the sister will get 4.5 share. Okay, and you daughters will get like 22 and 1/3 share. Yeah, those are just rough. I'm just doing it mentally, and yeah, there. As I said, you have to be good in math in the process. As for my understanding, 2/3 is for us daughters. Who gets the rest of 1/3? Yeah, if she give 1/3 of her asset, who can she gift it to? She wants to gift it to us, but is that allowed? No. That's not allowed. Unless all her brothers, unless her 3 brothers and 1 sister say, yes, we agree that you can leave it for your 3 daughters, unless she says that, you cannot bypass Allah's command and give it to them. The brothers are inheritors as well as the 1 sister. The 3 brothers and 1 sister are inheritors. So she cannot do that. She cannot do that. The deceased man was not of sound mind for the years preceding his death, and no will was made. Post death, the responsibility lies on the wife, daughter, or son to ensure a will is made in accordance to Islamic law. Any other parts of that question? So question number 4, the deceased man was not in sound mind. So yes, so that's no problem. He didn't leave a will of 1/3, so that's fine. So after his death, the responsibility would lie on the relative, his wife, or whoever is going to inherit, to make sure that it is done according to Islamic law. And please don't imagine a situation. If you have a real case, it's better, because imagination can lead us from now till the end of this year with scenarios. So if you do have a scenario that is bothersome, then say it, or some clarification. Other than that, fiqh is such a thing that you can sit and imagine and imagine and imagine. So do we need to go to a lawyer to write the will, or can we just write it down ourselves and get 2 witnesses to sign? Yes, you can do that. And you can take it to a notary public to say that this is true what you're saying here. So you don't need to go to a lawyer. Lawyer does help. You can go, and if you go to a Muslim lawyer, that will be fine. You pay them a small fee, they will write it according to what you want, and they will have it notarized. You have to notarize this will in this American system here for it to be a proper document, okay? So you can take an attorney or write it down and go to a notary public, notarize your document. So when the person dies, you present this now, the court will have a probate, case where the probate court, where they will process your property and give accordingly. A person passed away leaving 2 daughters and a wife. So a man dies and he leave 2 daughters and a wife, who is not the mother of the daughters. Yes, so it doesn't matter once it is his daughters, okay? So these are his daughters. So he leave 2 daughters and a wife. How will the division go? So so the 2 daughters get 2/3. So they will share 1/3 of the wealth. And the wife will get 1/8 because he has children. So he died. We are not talking about her children. She gets 1/8 because he has these 2 daughters. Okay, so that will be the division. So it means something will remain. So will the share be the same for the second wife as it will be for the first, who was the mother of the? Correct. So she will have the 1/8 of the share. I assume that either the mother divorced the father or the mother also died earlier. Okay, so his first wife, who are your mothers, would have either been divorced or she would have died. He married another woman, not the second wife, but we call her the second wife that he has. And so she will get 1/8 because he has 2 daughters. Now there will be some portion remaining, so you'll have to go back and see who will be the nearest male relative of your father, and that nearest male relative will have to inherit the remainder. So if you add 2/3 and 1/8, your LCM, your portion, will be out of 24. So the girls will get 16 portion to share with the 2 of them. The wife will get 1/8 out of 24, which is 3. 16 plus 3 is 19. 5 portions remain, will go to the nearest male relative. Next question. Will there be any more inheritors of the deceased other than the wife and daughters, like a nephew? Yes, we talked about that. We showed you, you go to the nearest male relative, who can be a paternal uncle or like a nephew, his brother's son. They will get the remainder of the, which is 5 share out of 24. Number 7, I'm confused on the subject of writing a will. What is the purpose of writing a will since the inheritance laws are already? The will is 1/3 of your wealth. The will is not about the inheritance. Please make that clear in your mind. The will that you're going to write is you have the opportunity, if you want, while you're alive, you have up to 1/3 of your property that you can make a will to give other than the inheritors, because the inheritors are already, according to what we have studied and what you're also seeing here, the inheritance are already known. But the 1/3 is not known. So Allah has made that portion for us to spread that wealth to other people or other institutions. And subhanAllah, today we need that 1/3 from our Muslim community more than any other time, so we can do Islamic work. So since inheritance laws are already laid out by Allah, what portion of the wealth is permissible to write in a will? The 1/3 portion. So this is how you do it. You will write your will, and you can say in your will that I would like my wealth to be distributed between my children or whoever a name should have gotten by the verses that we mentioned. Okay, and I would also like, before my wealth is distributed, 1/3 of my wealth goes for ICNA, for example. I'm just giving an example. I want 1/3 of my wealth. Now that wealth can fluctuate. You can have $100,000 today and you make that will. By the time you die, it might turn, all you have, with how prices are going up these days, you might have $20,000. Okay, so you are still saying 1/3 of that will be given to ICNA. So instead of when you were writing the will, you had in your mind, oh, maybe 33,000, that's a good amount. But when you die, it's 20,000 or 18,000. Let's say 18,000. It's easier to calculate 1/3. So 18,000, so 6,000 goes to ICNA. Okay? Because your wealth fluctuates, but the portion does not fluctuate. So you write a will. If you want to have blessings when you go in your grave, you have up to 1/3 to write your will. Nobody can assume, oh, maybe he would like to give 1/3. That's not going to work. Okay? Why it's not going to work? Because this wealth now doesn't belong to him. It belongs to the inheritors. He had in his lifetime to document up to 1/3. So whoever writing this question, the 1/3 of the will is what he or she can write. And I would say go home now after this session, have a conversation, write out if you are going to die. Now, it may change. It may change because you write your will today, comes next week, somebody within that will pass away. Okay, so you have to rewrite the will. And before you die, somebody else passes away. You have to rewrite that will. Okay, but your 1/3 that you have, you can always say this 1/3 of my wealth goes to so and so. Why I'm saying you write the names of the person, because in America or Canada, they may not understand. I want my property to be distributed according to Islamic Sharia. Unless there is a Sharia board in Canada that their judgment is final. Normally in America here, you appoint someone. So you can say, okay, I appoint as this executor of my wealth, Sheikh so-and-so. And whatever decision he has made will be final according to and he will make his decision based on the Islamic law. His decision will be final for the distribution of my property. For my 1/3 of my wealth, now this 1/3 is where you have your full authority. For this 1/3 of my wealth, I would like 1/3 of my wealth to be given to ICNA for the purpose of printing Quran and distribute to non-Muslims. So you're very specific what you want to do with that 1/3 of your wealth. So now you give that 1/3. When you die, the court will see, okay, Sheikh so-and-so, they might ask him to come. How much will this person get? How much would that person get? How much would that person get? And then this person also make out 1/3 of a will for ICNA. Who is this ICNA? Oh, it's an Islamic Circle of North America. We do, we bring about awareness of Islam. Okay, so there are specific directions here. And they want this 1/3, which reach up to $20,000, to be given to that project. And so they may ask, they may ask how this money is to be given to ICNA and to supervise that it is done. They normally do have some supervision that the money is given to that, for that purpose. Somebody is asking that it would be nice if we have a document. Yes, I do have a document as a template for your Islamic will. It is about 10 pages. So if we are to do that, we would have taken up the 2 hours in just the example. As I said, this is just to whet your appetite on Islamic inheritance and to clarify, bring about awareness. This is not going to give you all the answers here. Okay, so just make sure that you understand that. Wasiya is for other relatives or parents give their 1/3 to his son in advance so that the son can get more at the time of distribution of inheritance, much more than the daughters. So if somebody gave his son in his lifetime, he has to give his son. That's not wasiyah, or that is hiba. That's gift. Remember we talk about hiba, the gift that you can give a person. So in his lifetime, you can make a gift to that person. Is it going to be the best case scenario? Not necessary, because he has daughters. He should have given them as well. But if he does give his son 1/3 property, it must be in the son's disposal while the person is alive. That's what the gift is. And he cannot make that in his will. When I die, my son get 1/3 extra. That's not going to work. Okay? He would have given him that 1/3, and the son would have owned it while he was still alive. Okay? So we're talking about the deceased person. He should have owned that. Yeah, give it to his son and while alive. What is the ruling for the jewelry left by women? It is wealth. So everything, sisters. So your brother can end up with a pair of bangle from your mom, because that's what. So jewelry, everything that is considered wealth, everything will be given according to those rules and regulations. Remember, long ago was more jewelry than money. Today is more money than jewelry, but they're still considered as wealth of the individual, whatever wealth they have. If the son is becomes an atheist, will he be considered kafir? And he cannot inherit. If the son is an atheist, you cannot inherit from him, and he cannot inherit from you. Okay? So that's clear. Number 11, if parents are not alive, if any of the parents are not alive, who get their share? You go to the nearest relative. Okay? The nearest relative, male or female, gets the wealth. So you try and try and try. If not, if he doesn't have anybody, the wealth goes to Baitul Mal. And Baitul Mal here will mean which masjid he goes to or which organization he is. You give them the wealth and say, well, look, this person died, doesn't have anybody, doesn't have any near relative, nor even far relative. And so take his wealth for fi sabilillah. So the wealth goes to the Baitul Mal.
I was not, yes, Sheikh, I was not able to type it, so I will just read it for you. If
Yes.
if someone's husband dies and leaves a life insurance as inheritance, in which the wife is the beneficiary, is it halal to use that money?
Yes. So this is a question that still is worrisome. The money belongs to her. There is no doubt about it. The money belongs to her. What is sure as halal, absolutely halal from that money, is the money that he puts in. Okay? So let's say if she has an idea that he puts in $20,000, that definitely is wealth that he will use, will have. But the remainder $1 million, for example, there is issues about that. For now, she can spend it accordingly to her needs, and we have not yet come up to a fatwa. We are working on that for a long time. So far, we have not arrived at a strong fatwa, so I cannot give a direct fatwa what she can do or what she cannot do with the money. I cannot say it's halal to use, but the money is in her disposal. For now, she uses it, but is it halal or not? We have not come to a conclusion of that.
Yes. Another question is that the wasiyah for 1/3 of your property is not obligatory. So
No,
it's not necessary to be done.
you are correct. You can have your entire wealth left for your family. There is no compulsion. It is just that Allah has given you this little avenue. You want to use it, use it. Okay? You don't want to use it, there is no sin. There's absolutely no sin. But there is blessing if you do that. Okay? It's like getting up and pray tahajjud. Okay? If you get up and you pray tahajjud, you will get sawab for that. You will get reward for that. But if you did not get up and pray tahajjud, there is no sin. You're not going to get sin for that. Okay?
Yeah, Sheikh. That was the last question. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. So I know there was a lot of back and forth chat. I could not read. Maybe you were reading them and
Yes,
taking
yes.
note from that.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is one more question. I'm sorry. One more question. There is a convert, and his underage children go in the care of his family who have not converted. In the
Yes.
case that both parents die. In this case, can he give his wealth to his siblings to take care of his children? He is already a convert. Yeah.
Yes. Are his children underage?
Yes.
Yeah. So in that case, what you can do, his children will inherit the property because it is not like they reach the age of maturity where they will be considered as kafir. So he will leave his property for his children, and he can leave his brother in charge, his Muslim brother, to be in charge of the wealth, to administer that wealth to his children.
I think there is no Muslim brother.
Okay, so the question is asked that can he give who the money?
Yes. Can he give his wealth to his siblings who are not Muslims just to take care of his children?
Yeah, I mean, if the siblings are going to take care of his children, he can make a document again, have it notarized that my wealth goes to my children when I die, and I leave such and such a person as executor of this will, and that they will spend this money accordingly for the benefit of my children. That's it. However, if the children reach the age of maturity, which is about 14, 15 years old, and they have ended up being kafir, wa'yadhu billah, and he still is alive, and let's say he dies and the children reach the age of maturity and they are not Muslims, then the children will not inherit the wealth. But as children underage, as young children, they will be the inheritors of his property. Just like a person dies and leave a baby, okay? That baby obviously but he can inherit a $500,000. The baby that's the baby's inheritance. So who takes care of the baby will be the one who will administer this money to the baby. Again, in his case, he doesn't have a Muslim brother, and he trusts his brother and his sister. He can identify them, make a paper, make a document, and have it notarized so that it is legal, and the court will see that this money is given to his children.
We have another question, Sheikh. What should we do as housewives about our stuff like jewelry, clothes, and other household things? Should we write them in a will if we don't have any money in our bank account?
Yes. So what is considered as wealth or your property? Normally pots and pans and plate and so forth is, again, generally they're not divided. Clothing that are worth money, and they can be considered, maybe a dress is $1,000, I don't know. A dress is $1,000. She has 10 of those dresses, and so within the family, that again, that can be decided what is considered as wealth that will be divided. If not, if the family decides that the dresses are not valuable, but we can all take one dress, as a souvenir for our daughter or sister or so forth. But her jewelry definitely is wealth, and her jewelry should be distributed according to. Now, let's say somebody gets, not everything can be distributed to the nearest dollar, but somebody gets a portion beyond his portion. like let's say a bangle, a pair of bangle, you get one side bangle, the next one get one side bangle, the next one get an earring. So you cannot break the bangle and say, well, take a piece from here. What you can do, you can liquidate the jewelry, and who gets the bangle? You pay the next person who did not reach their share. So your share, let's say, is $5,000, but your jewelry that you got was $6,000. And you don't want to break anything and give someone. So you pay them the $1,000 to make up for the extra that you got. Because when you get extra, then the person would have gotten a short amount. And if you cannot come to an agreement, then sell the jewelry and give everybody cash, if that is going to be easier for the family. If it is easier for them to give out piece of jewelry, and sometimes somebody can say, you know what, I am happy with this that I got here, and I'm okay with you getting this little extra. I don't want to break anything. All of that will be within your prerogative, your, but you have to take. Remember that inheritance wealth is something that you have to take. This is a compulsory, the only compulsory wealth that you have to take. And if you want to give it to somebody else, you give it to somebody else. But you cannot say, no, 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 I don't want anything. What you're saying there literally is saying that Allah has made this for me, and I'm saying, no, I don't want it. You cannot do that. You have to, if you want to give somebody else within the inheritors your share, you have to take it and give it to that person. But you cannot say, I don't want anything. Okay, so because you have to take this wealth. It is your wealth that Allah has made it for you. So you can take it and say, well, I'm going to give it to my little brother, my little sister, I'm going to give it to my mom, but it is you giving them, not that I don't want, so get me out, and then calculate with my absence. You cannot do that.
Another question, Sheikh. Is it advisable for Muslims in the West to write a will mentioning how our wealth should be distributed according to Sharia, and also how much they want to give in charity?
Yes. So this will be good, because what happens if you die without without making a will, then the court will take a lot of processing fee. Okay, the court will take a lot of processing fee, and when they give, they do not give according to Sharia. If you die without a will, they will not give you according to Sharia, no matter how religious you are. They will give the spouse, in some state they will give her so much. Sometimes they give her all the wealth, or their children, they will give the wife 50%, and they will give the children accordingly. So they will not give according to Sharia. So it is better that you leave a will according to Sharia. If anybody dies, you can always change that will, or renew your will every 2-3 years. But it is good to make a will that when I die, my wife gets 1/8 of my property, my son Abdullah gets the remainder, for example, and then for the 1/3 of my property that I would like to be given to ICNA, things like that you can write. And there is a format. I cannot pull it up now. Maybe if there's another session sometime later, I can pull up that will and show you the will, how it is done. Very detailed, very, very detailed. Who will be the one carrying out your instructions? The court will give that person now the authority. You have the authority now to distribute that person's wealth accordingly.
We have another question. If the mother is divorced, will the children get a portion from the father's wealth even if they were not living with the father?
Yes. The mother is divorced, she takes the children. The father is still their father. And the father's wealth, if he dies, must be given to these children. He divorced their mother, he didn't divorce them. This is still his blood relationship. And if he doesn't give his children that property, sometimes he marries and gets another set of children, okay? But his first set of children must inherit because that is their father as well. So if the father dies, yes, they have to inherit.
That's all, Sheikh. We are done with the questions.
Yes, so I mean, it is a lot of information that you have today. Just sit and sort it out. And inshallah, if you have specific questions, or situation that you want me to delve into more details, inshallah, I can help you with that. May Allah bless you all. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallahu khairan kathiran for the very informative and concise lecture, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair to all the sisters who were attending, and as Sheikh said that if you send in your questions, inshallah we will be able to reply. Please send your queries to adduha.iise@iknasisters.co. Inshallah we will try to reply to you as soon as possible. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته